Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. My name is Miss V, and I've got another incredible guest. Today we are speaking with James Wilmot, who is the Careers Advisor and Director of Careers at the Priory Learning Trust. Welcome to Let's Talk Careers, James. I'm so excited to have you with me today.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. We just had a little catch up right before we started recording, and you made me really excited about the journey that we're about to discover for our young people and parents, educators, and practitioners. James, before we get into the details of what you're doing right now, I'd like to take you back to when you were a teenager. As a careers practitioner, we spend so much time trying to create opportunities and initiatives for the youth to find their way forward in the most exciting and also in the most supportive way. But was that what it was like when you were a teenager?
It was well intentioned, but it wasn't great. So I grew up in Ireland, in the countryside in southwest Ireland. I moved here to the southwest of England when I was a teenager against my free will. And the career advice in the school was well intentioned, but it was misinformed. It wasn't clear. It wasn't guidance. It was just information. So I finished here and found myself studying at university, studied psychology at university. And then following that, I worked for Hamleys of London for a couple of years in toys. But then I found my groove by moving into recruitment. And that's when I realized I enjoyed helping people find work. And then through a few more steps, I joined my old school here as their careers advisor.
That's incredible. I want to bring some context to careers advice. You mentioned it was more advice, not so much guidance. Let's define what careers guidance is like looking through your perspective.
So guidance is the glue that brings everything together, I think. I think information is what it is. I think advice is absolutely fine. But if you don't take the time to guide a young person through all of their options, to have real conversations with them, it is really risky of failure, of not helping the student get to the right destination, to help them get on the right path.
Amazing. This could just be the conversation, but I know that we want to talk about your career insights and move ourselves forward. We're definitely going to pick this conversation up, hopefully in the future. Talk to me about the ologies of your life. You did psychology, archaeology, Irish mythology, and then the paranormal. What on earth is that mixture? What were those interests? Where did they come from?
Okay, so I grew up in Southwest Ireland in the 80s, which was just beautiful and magical. So that's where the Irish mythology came from, and the interest in archaeology. I always, I grew up running around ruins and caves and tunnels and things. It was a childhood that you read books about. It was that kind of childhood. So that's where the mythology came from, and a bit of archaeology. The psychology came from, I've always enjoyed just trying to understand how people tick, what makes them, motivated. So the psychology was really fascinating at university. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, I use it every day. Even though I didn't follow a career in psychology, I use it every day. I reflect on it. I've never taught it. I'm not that intelligent. But yeah, that's where the ologies came from.
And then
and the paranormal. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Well, we're not going to let you forget about that. I think there's a story behind that on its own.
Okay, so the paranormal and the supernatural, I guess, came from the Irish mythology and a little bit of archaeology with the folklore. But then, I was a teenager in the 90s. It was like X-Files. So yeah, it was when I was studying my degree in psychology, I decided to bring it all together, and my dissertation was the relationship between paranormal belief and self-esteem. I had other ideas for a dissertation that didn't get passed through the Board of Ethics. We'll talk about that another time. But yeah, it was paranormal belief and self-esteem, the relationship between the two. And yeah, I've written a couple of papers on paranormal belief. I wrote a book when I was much younger about some things, and written a couple of kind of semi-mythological, supernatural, paranormal books as well. So yeah, that's where it all kind of knits together.
Amazing. So if a student were to come into your office with theologies and then something a little bit different, how would you support them through that process?
Everyone should be a little bit different. Otherwise, we are so vanilla. Yeah, I congratulate any student that shows a bit of spark and individuality. What we do here in my schools is we have a mainstream careers program of one-to-ones and college visits and, you know, practice interviews. But alongside that, we've got these kind of little niche pockets for those students who are a little bit ology. You know, I'll coach them writing their own short stories every year. So we publish our own ebook so they can become bestsellers. A friend of mine in the States runs a publishing company that helps us. So the really kind of creative, artistic students can write or produce poetry or illustrate these stories that we publish. We also really promote and put them on a high pedestal, the students who are heroes, who aren't necessarily the grade A students in school or the ones that, you know, are the best at sports. It's the students that do things under the radar in the community or at home we don't know about at school, or if people at home or in the community don't know about what their kids do in school. So we put them up on a pedestal there. And we do everything we can to really bring out creativity and individuality in our students, because that's what makes the world so interesting.
I completely agree. I'm going to take you back to your journey highlights. Tell us about the little stint you did in hypnotherapy. What was that about? I find that so interesting. And whenever I work with young people, I often get the same question, Miss V, what if I get it wrong? And I'm like, listen, it doesn't matter where you begin. That's where the journey begins. But you'll know that it will kind of evolve as you grow into your career. So often when I'm sharing these career stories, I love when an individual in front of me has parts of that career journey so different to the role. It helps young people realize that I can go off this linear path that everybody thinks I have to be on and try new things and gain those skills. So you were a hypnotherapist, and maybe you still are, and an author. So tell us how hypnotherapy came into the career story.
Okay, so I've always been fascinated with hypnotherapy because of my interest in the paranormal and so on. I was in a job a few years ago that was really taking it out of me, and I needed an exit strategy. And this is something I talk about with students and adults all the time. You've got to have an exit strategy. You can't assume that, like you said, that path is going to be linear. So I'd always had an interest. And this is the weird story. So my wife is a dietitian, and she went on a training weekend where they talked about irritable bowel syndrome and about how that was a huge proportion of doctors' appointments here in the UK, and one of the best ways of helping individuals handle irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, is through hypnotherapy. So she suggested I go and look into being a hypnotherapist. So I looked around, and there was a training school 20 miles away from me here in Bristol. So I went and explored it further, did it alongside my current job for training for a year, and then I got the job here, which is the best job I've ever had. So I didn't need it as an exit strategy anymore. So I used it before COVID to help students with maybe some anxiety nerves with their families, to help them move forward, to think more positively, to handle stressful situations better. And I used it a little bit during COVID with other people. I don't use it a lot, but it's something that I bring out every now and again. And it's just one of those skills one of those conversation points where people look through my LinkedIn profile and you can see them kind of double take, and they're like, "What's that?" But it's like psychology. Just the training I had just helps me understand the anxieties and the challenges up here that a lot of young people have. It's a great skill. I'm really grateful to have those skills.
That's
So that was
incredible.
the hypnotherapy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And then where did the author journey come through? I know that you said that you help young people at your institutions to become authors. Where did it come in for you? When did you decide that the words in your journey needed to be published?
When I was a kid, I was always coming up with stories, really, really imaginative, terrible in school, really bad in school. Handwriting was shocking, could barely write, learned to write in a fountain pen. What was that about? I feel like I'm 120 years old when I tell people that. So I was always really creative, always telling stories, making stuff up. And where I grew up, it was kind of brilliant and amazing. And then when I moved into adulthood, I developed a really strong fascination with the kind of the traditions and the mythology of Christmas. And again, I was in this job a while ago that I really was finding challenging. So I needed an outlet. So I just started writing. I thought one day I'd played this book, Christmas book, through my head like a film over and over again. So I had it in my head. I used to play out scenes in my head. I used to tune out at work and play out a scene in my head. And then one day I thought, you know what, I've just got to write this. So I started at the beginning, got so far till I got bored. Then I started at the end and worked backwards, met myself in the middle, edited it. A good friend of mine over in the States published it. It did really well. It was a really strong bestseller. In the first Christmas it was released, we did an audio book that you can see on YouTube, listen to on YouTube. Then I wrote my second book, which is the difficult second album. It was the personal project that hasn't done nearly as well as the Christmas one, but it's the one I'm most proud of. And yeah, that was kind of a semi-autobiographical based on my childhood with supernatural and mythological elements to it. So I found it to be a really strong outlet. So when I started here, a student came in to see me one day and we were talking about career aspirations, and she said, "I'd like to be an author, but I can't, so I won't. So I've got to think of something else." And I was like, whoa, stop right there. Anyone can be an author. She was like, "Well, what if I don't make any money?" Doesn't matter, you can still be an author. I'm an author, I haven't made any money. So we came up with this idea that any student in any of our year groups can write me stuff between now and Christmas, and I will publish it, I'll edit it, we'll make it available online all around the world, and every year, because the following we've got, they're top 5 bestsellers. So those shy, creative kids that just write stuff, draw stuff, think about stuff, that was maybe me years and years and years ago, they'll finish this year, they'll finish 2022, knowing that they are a best-selling author, poet, illustrator. And the nice thing is, we've got kids that I'm seeing doing trainee teaching, and it's on their CV from like 6 years ago. So it's something that goes on their resumes and their CVs, and it's something that they're really proud of. And we get the parents in the hall and the grandparents, and they have a cry, and it's all very emotional. Yeah, it just elevates them. It elevates them from being creative people to being, in the spotlight. Yeah, that's why we do it.
I love that. Okay, so listening to this right now will be career practitioners. And with career practitioners, of course, there are very many different perspectives, which is why I asked you to bring the context to what you believed guidance was. As a careers advisor yourself and also the director of careers, what would your top tips be for a practitioner?
It's all about the one student. It's all about focusing on them, because we talk too much. I've met many careers advisors, and they talk and they talk. And when my son in another school had his one and only visit from a careers advisor just before he finished school, he said, "Man, they can talk." He talked about this other guy that they'd seen this morning. They talked about their nephew. Didn't really ask me any questions. Yeah, we talk too much. I think careers practitioners need to listen more. We need to maybe use the silence a bit more. But that, I think, this is the catch. I'm in a very, very privileged position here because in my 3 schools, we've got a career practitioner in each of them, full time, here every day with an office, and we're a presence all through the students' life here and families. So they can trust us. They learn to trust us because we're familiar faces. And I do feel for careers advisors that go into a school that don't have that link with the families or the staff or the students. But yeah, we have this really privileged position here in my schools where we can get the kids in for as long or as little as we need to, for as often as we need to, and listen. Because we can have a 2-minute conversation here today, and then in 2 weeks' time they can come back in and we can have a 10-minute conversation. And after that, another conversation, and after that, their parents might come in. So that trust builds. But yeah, we talk too much. I'm talking too much. We need to listen more. I think that's really important. And to do that, we need time. And often that's something that careers practitioners don't have because they're booked for one day in a school, or they have very set slots. They can only access the students at a certain time of day, certain time of week. Sorry, that's a very long answer to a very short question.
No, and what you've identified are real challenges that practitioners are experiencing. So if a practitioner is listening and going, James, I am that practitioner who has such limited time, how do I do it? What would your tips be for someone that might only have one conversation with a young person like your son before they graduate?
I would challenge the school. I would challenge the school because it's important that schools don't just do this gesture only, one hit, one talk, hit the benchmark, hit the compliance policy. It's about more. And the staff in my trust who look after the schools and in each school really see the value in that because they see it firsthand. And I go out to other schools to sing that kind of from that hymn sheet to encourage other schools to do the same. But yeah, it's about having those conversations with the senior school staff, with trust staff to say, we need more as much as possible. I think that's really important. But yeah, for those sessions, you've got to make it count. It's got to be led by the individual. Of course, it has to be led by them. And we need to be ready. We have to have a toolkit ready to go with the resources and the signposting so those students leave us going in the right direction, feeling empowered to find the answers themselves. If they are too reliant on us to give them the information, then that one session isn't going to work because they can't move on from our conversation. So yeah.
I love that. Okay, now I want you to imagine a school leader is listening to this conversation. Tell us about the Priory Learning Trust and why you believe that it is the most incredible career services ever.
So it started with Priory School, of which I was the careers advisor of. And then as new schools joined us who needed additional help and support, the careers program also was one of the deals that they join us and rolled the same careers program. So the chief executive officer made me director of careers alongside English, maths and science so that careers had the same shoulder room as the core subjects. And that gave us the freedom to speak with the principals directly, to speak to parents and students directly. It gave us a branding so we could reach out to colleges and universities and businesses to engage with us. We're quite strong with our marketing and branding. So many careers advisors have spoken to me in the past and said, we don't really get anyone involved in this and this and this. I think, well, maybe you're not marketing it right, You can't sit in an empty shop and complain that no one comes in. So our marketing is quite strong. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you can see the kind of things that we do. And we bring everyone together. So we communicate with parents and students and staff and stakeholders. We bring it all together and make it fun. But like I said before, the most important thing we have is time and freedom to get on with what we want to do. I can take a student out of class anytime if they want to talk to me. I think the kids really respect that, and the teachers, as long as it's meaningful, they will allow it to happen. If they think it's a pointless exercise, the value is gone. So I hope that the trust in the schools value what we do, and that is what helps us work so well.
I love that. I totally resonate with the structure that you've implemented within your schools at the Priory Learning Trust. I think that coming from my perspective, if the students return to their classroom fully energized and feeling career empowered, it's just a win-win that they'll want to come back and then naturally want to refer the service onto other students and then of course go home. And I find that a great career conversation with a practitioner becomes a conversation starter at home, as opposed to when a student is feeling really afraid or stuck or limited and a parent brings up that conversation, it becomes a challenging conversation for students and their parents. So I highly resonate with what you're saying. James, just before the Wi-Fi shoots us on offline here, tell us what keeps you motivated. Earlier on, you said this was the best job you ever had. You don't need an exit strategy. I love it because I live, breathe, dream career development. Anyone that knows me is like, oh my goodness, there she goes again. So I feel like I'm part of this tribe, but why do you stay motivated?
Because I owe it to the kids, because I was that kid once who didn't get the help they needed at the time. I know I've got contacts. I've got this cool toolkit that I've built over 30 years, and I've got it, and it's ready to go. That's what gets me up in the morning, to share ideas and to have those conversations, not tell people what to do. And it's so rewarding when they come back to us. It's so rewarding when they come in at break time just to chill out for 5 minutes because it's too noisy outside. It's so rewarding. In 2 years' time, some of our students will come back and they'll want to check in again and talk about other ideas, or their parents might. And it's a long game, and that's what's so rewarding about it. It's not a one hit and out. It's a long, long game where you can see young people really thrive, like really thrive. Yeah, that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what it's all about.
Amazing. James, absolutely amazing. We talked about your tips for a practitioner. We talked about, what a student should look forward to. Now I'd like to, just as we're bringing it to a close, what do you want to say to parents who are feeling skeptical about the service because when they were in secondary school, it was not what you're providing right now or what we're advocating for, and they might have their own opinions. And I know that you believe that careers is not, we don't discover careers in a vacuum. It's really a collaborative effort of all the individuals that come together to support that young person. But how do you support a parent who might be skeptical and doubtful?
Everyone's got a lousy careers advisor story, haven't they? We are very much a maligned profession, quite rightly too, because it's been pretty poor for a long, long time. I tend to try, never always, but try to win over families with positivity, with insight, and just professional care. I think they respect that. And the kids, if you build a relationship with the kids, it's the best feeling in the world. On the weekend, when I'm in the supermarket and a student says hello to me, because they can't have beef with me. I'm not their head of maths, I'm their careers guy. And then the parent will say, who's that? That's the careers guy. It's like, yes. And then they might sidle over and have a conversation. It's about encouraging those conversations and this is why we do these early interviews in year 7, because it starts those conversations. It can bust some stereotypes. When the stakes are high in year 10 and 11, when it's time to leave, hopefully the trust with the parents and the students is there, so they can understand that we've got a good enough level of quality that they believe us and they trust us. And that's why we always have to be really good, and everything we do has to be meaningful, because if it's not, they won't believe us, they won't trust us. So it's about belief in the trust, knowing that we might know someone. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
I love it. I used to tell students, whenever a practitioner is in front of a student, there's always a parent story behind the student. And I'm either rising up to the high quality standard of a previous practitioner, or I'm having to recreate the idea of what core career service is. So it's work. It's always going to be trying to make it even better so that the next practitioner can kind of rise up and help those students. James, such an incredible conversation. You have a very interesting story. I love the ologies and then the paranormal bit. And I think any young person listening to this right now, if you have listened to anything, I believe that James is advocating for there's no one right way to do it. Just enjoy the journey. And right behind him is you are the hero of your own story. And I think career stories always make the most interesting stories. Thank you for being with me today, James. And I think from the bottom of my career heart, I thank you for creating these incredible experiences for young people and by also paving the way for other practitioners who are following everything that you're doing and believing that it is possible, because I believe it is possible. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And this was an incredible conversation. We spoke with James Wilmot, who is the Careers Advisor and Director of Careers at the Priory Learning Trust. I will see you all at the next Let's Talk Careers with Miss B.